Welcome to the Garden of Rose. I'm very, very happy to welcome Barbara Cecil, the founder of the Coming Into Your Own Feminine Leadership Program, into the Garden of Rose. My name is Cécile Masson, and I'm the founder of this garden. Welcome, Barbara.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. So, Barbara, you've been greatly influential in my life and in many lives of others I know. And you're one of the wise women of Otto Scharmer's book, Theory U. You have influenced him to write it. You are yourself a writer. You've written the book Coming Into Your Own, very precious. That is at the moment being translated into Turkish, which is beautiful. And you're a coach, you're a mentor, you are a creator, so many things. How would you like to speak about yourself?
I think you've spoken beautifully. I don't really have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the Garden of Rose, just for those watching this video later on, is evolution has happened because I got to know the CYO 10 years ago, and the CYO started, well, more than 10 years ago, thinking of it. But you are right at the cradle of it, Barbara. Would you like to share a little bit of how the CYO Coming Into Your Own Feminine Leadership Program has evolved and has started? What was the foundation of it?
When we began the Coming Into Your Own program, we weren't intending to have a program or an international program. We were just following a thread of a need that was present about now 25 years ago, which proves how ancient I am. The women at that time, and particularly in the West, where we were more focused at that time, they had challenges finding their own voice, showing up, particularly in corporate situations. So we began working with women who wanted to lead in different ways that were not imitating a more masculine approach, but were calling forth different sensibilities in themselves within the organizations that they worked in. So we somehow our offering coincided with a wave of need, and it took off, and one thing led to another, and we were all very surprised that it kept going. And and here you are today, the next generation of women who are providing leadership for this international community. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But what I wanted to say was I was thinking, anticipating this call, about what was the essence of the program at that particular time that took root. Why was it important? And I would say that we found a way to help people make decisions that, okay, or lead from a place whose origin was inside, rather than being a reflection of the way other people functioned or expectations from home, education, family, the corporate settings in which they worked. There was a need to listen, and at a much deeper level, as to what what needed to happen and what needed to be said and what were the right next steps, both personally and collectively for many of the people who had leadership positions, so that they were sourcing their lives from a different place. And for me, this is the antithesis to the patriarchal system. It's the essence of that divergence, because it is not, it's where you come from that is, it's a feminine source. And what characterizes that feminine source to me was what we called the creative process in the work that we did at that time, and that's still a core element in what the course contains now. But instead of reacting and deciding, there was a slowing down to a stillness, a quiet place within, from which to let go of expectations of self and from others, and breathe and see what was actually brewing and generating, like what was present below the surface that needed expression, articulation, encouragement, whether it be in a person or a collective or in oneself. And so the first thing is that stillness, and the second thing is connection. So women are not lone rangers. The second thing is coming out of a stiller place, and hopefully one that's shared if you have a more conscious leadership group or community. There is a quality of conversation between people that's exploratory. It's collaborative. Where you listen together, and out of that comes a sense of right action. So it's what precedes action that makes it feminine to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
it makes absolute sense. Yeah. Okay.
And then the action eventually leads to a kind of fulfillment, because things that originate out of this deep root are hugely fulfilling, and they're revolutionary, to tell you the truth. They carry a lot of weight, especially when they come through as a collective. So that was the beginning, and I see a slightly different emphasis now, even though the forms of the course may be somewhat similar. There is a different context that we live in. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the CIYO is bringing forth some other elements that were not emphasized in the beginning, or it could be. So I'm just going to pause for a second before launching into that, if that's of interest to you, just to see if you have any comments or.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the core program, the one that we defined as being the elementary program with the rocks and the stones and the sand, that we talked about when we met, all of us in England, which was a beautiful gathering, 2014 already. Imagine how long that is ago already. That core program, that foundational CIYO, I think is an important one, and that's the one that is often also being put forward in different contexts. But what I'm noticing indeed is that there is an evolution of need, and maybe I'm very curious to say what you're going to hear what you're going to say. What I'm noticing is that there is an enormous need to reconnect to our bodily intelligence, reconnect to spirituality was always there, but to really embody it and to sense it deeply in what we bring. And I think that's where you were referring to as well. There is that on one side, that spark in our physical awareness that we sense and that we feel. And yet there is something that traverses us as well, which is that before step of the action that you were referring to, if I understand it correctly. As if we are so much opening that something can come through us, which is much more powerful than any ego can ever be. And if that happens collectively, then the power is that much stronger.
Very beautifully said.
Yeah, that's how I feel it at the moment. And I've given many programs in different countries, different cultures. And what you refer to as well as one of the core elements is the silence. That there may be silence also in the group as we journal, as we are together, maybe listening to a small piece of music as we, are together in the circle. But that silence is there as well. We're always looking for a beautiful place, not just somewhere in an office building, but we are trying to find places where we can really be close to earth, close to nature. And silence, I think, is an important part of it as well. That's being in silence together. I don't know how you experienced it.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we were looking at how to unite the graduates of the program back a long way, like about 15 years ago, instead of having a newsletter or having a Zoom call or a talking thing, we initiated a time on the last Sunday of every month to be silent together, so that our connection was essential as opposed to verbal and chatty, and that we assumed that was a profound and intimate way. So I love what you're saying, and I'd like to build on that a little bit.
Yes, please.
About current needs. I think one thing is that we in the West particularly have a focus on self-development. My fulfillment, my satisfaction, my calling, and there is something moving now that has to do with our calling. It's a we instead of an I. And I mean, in a lot of the indigenous languages, at least in this part of the world, I don't know beyond North America, there is no word for I. It's always we. And there's something in this that is a fundamental shift that's needed at this time on Earth, where it's not every person for themselves, because that's not working. And the kinds of we're in this together spirit is really missing. And I mean, I'm speaking from the United States, which is probably, the most flagrant example of this rugged individualism that has turned into contention between people, disregard, competition, lying. I mean, so there's something in the weave of the CIYO that we never developed it as an example of community. But what happens in it is a remarkable experience of community.
Yeah.
And I think focusing on that and how that happens, and the skills that have actually set up that kind of collective ability to think together, to support one another, to it is a gift of the CIYO that is could be um, it sort of just happened, but now I think it could be more of an emphasis because it's absolutely remarkable,
Yes.
the community that is developed doing this work together.
I totally in tune with you on this, because I do think in particular when you have the opportunity to hold this program in a corporate environment or within a business or any where several women work in the same work environment, the collective intelligence that rises throughout that program, that this is focused on I, if it can then be actually united in the circle of women that come out of the program, it's immensely powerful. And I'm seeing it happening just now at this time, because I had the opportunity to give one of those programs with the two faculties together. And there are movements. People are speaking up. They asking questions now. They don't take a yes for, they don't just take an answer for an answer, but they really challenge the old order, and they feel empowered. They really feel empowered. And that's, I'm fully with you when you say coming into our own would be a very suitable form if in a corporate setting or in any group setting, to help individual women, but also to help the group process. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
yes, they go together. They're not.
Yes.
Yeah.
They go together, and also, you know very, very, very well that the challenges that humanity faces today, and with the environmental collapse, ecological collapse, social collapse in many communities, there's no one individual who finds the solution. It's really a collaboration of leaders that when in attunement with each other, that they can really find a possible way to go.
And that there are so many forces that are pulling things apart, that what you're talking about is being, in sync, not to have your ego so big or your own needs or your own nationalism so huge that you can't do something that benefits the whole. So I think what you're saying is deeply needed, and as you say, it's also very powerful. And even if you're doing it in a microcosm, a small way, in an organization or in a in a village with people
Absolutely.
together. It doesn't have to be corporate.
Right.
That quality of working together and growing one another and perceiving together and honoring and respecting one another, and it is it's a quiet beacon of potential in a world that everything's like going like this. The other quality that I wanted to speak about, that if I was doing this over again, if I was rewriting my book at this point, I would I have this what I call the wheel of change, and following it sort of dives into it, saying that something ends, and then there's I call it the dwelling place of endings, because you have to dwell in these places. And then the next place is the dwelling place of in between, before the next iteration or movement forward starts. And then there's the tending and caring for what's produced in this more conscious and actually beautiful sequence. But I think now the the emphasis on endings has been underrated. There are so many things in the world that are ending. There's in the turmoil that we have. I mean, I was just reading this one guy, he was like scratching his head and he said, in my lifetime, I've seen the fall of communism and the fall of democracy. I mean, those are a lot of big endings. And we are living in a very special time where you've used the word collapse, and it may look like chaos, it may look like turmoil, but embedded in that, there are many things that are over. And we hardly, at least I'll speak for myself, you know, I've been caught off guard at the speed at which this is all happening. And the, you know, just if you take the climate situation alone, it is, I mean, just the reports that came out from the UN, we're in a dire situation. And assumptions about getting back to normal are going to are very damaging are very damaging, and a real leader will not go there. will think along different tracks. And so the ability to name what's ending, people hate endings. They don't want things to be over. You know, you celebrate births, but death, that's a little harder. You celebrate a marriage, but a divorce, I don't know. You know, but there is, as women, we give birth, and we are death duelists too. We are able to end things, to name it when it's over, to say it out loud when nobody else wants to be unpopular.
Indeed.
Indeed. Go ahead.
And to lose things, you know. And I'm speaking of experience. When you do actually say it's over, then you take the risk to lose everything.
You do.
And
you take the risk to lose everything, and losing people who don't want to look at things square on, and they don't want to be, they don't want to lose hope, and they don't want to, I mean, there's so many things. You become unpopular, you become a little lonely sometimes. And we just don't want to lose things. Yeah.
I think it's a very important subject that you bring up, because it's as if, as human beings, people don't seem to acknowledge that we have an own ending. You know, in the CIO, there is what we call ages and stages, and there are different stages that women experience differently. Like at 20, you don't have the same needs as when you are 65 or 70. But each phase has a moment where we feel very, very intimately that something has ended, that something will not come back again. A certain flexibility in the joints. I'm speaking of experience here. But certain things are not coming back. So I think women are very much equipped to actually start talking about these endings, as you were saying, and also to acknowledge that with ending comes sadness sometimes. With ending comes also a certain, how shall I say that? How do you say that in English? When you lose somebody, you go into a phase of mourning.
Mourning.
Yeah. So it's part of life. And from that ending, if you can then have peace with that, something much more beautiful or different can evolve. It's like a breath. There is a bottom when the exhale is there, and then a new inhalation starts. So I think we are much deeper connected with Mother Earth than most of us want to acknowledge. And the rhythms of the moon, how the planets interact with each other. And in the Coming Into Your Own program, I keep finding that there is that connection. There is a way that there is some kind of wave movement along the days, the way they've been developed and designed, that allows that breath to happen and to start. And yeah, so absolutely, honoring the endings is a very, very important part of our work.
It is an important part, and I'm seeing that in deeper and deeper ways as we go along here, and that I'm seeing that it's actually a leadership quality, that if you can do that in your own life, then, and you're not afraid of what you call the grief or the mourning, and you go through and you go down, then there is, as you say, there's a bottom of the breath, but there is something on the other side of it. Yes. And people are so afraid of being stuck there forever in the sadness or the sorrow, and it's just not part of the culture, and nobody wants to hang out with someone who's feeling the blues. I just saw somebody wrote this wonderful article that in the United States right now, we should give up our national anthem, and we should come up with a blues song.
Oh, wonderful.
And I just thought, that is wonderful. Instead of the bombs early light and whatever we do on our national anthem.
Yes,
but
yes.
There's something profound that is lost. Like the new is not accessed without doing the grieving and the mourning. And there are many things in our lives, mostly the things that I find that are personal. They seem like they're personally, someone dies. I have a friend whose husband just committed suicide. I mean, it was just horrible. And so the traumas, people are a little nutty these days. There's going to be a lot of trauma. And then we're sitting in a traumatic environment. We must learn how to do this and welcome that depth and pain, and build the communities that can hold it with faith that there is the something else on the other side. And
absolutely, yeah. I think if as I listen to you, it comes to mind that when an apple falls from a tree, at some point, if it's not picked up and eaten, it will transform into the ground and feed the ecosystem.
Yes.
So we're talking about not just an ending, but we're talking about transformation of form to actually feed the new that wants to come up and emerge. Because fundamentally, I'm an optimist, and I really believe that as human beings, and because we are held by Mother Earth, there is a reason behind. That's one of the core principles of the Coming Into Your Own. There is always a reason or a logic that is bigger than what we can conceive. Call it life, call it whatever. Which makes that it seems that it's very chaotic, but underneath there is another force holding us, and that's exactly what you're saying. Past that ending, something else will come out, but might be something completely different that we've never experienced.
Exactly, and it may take a long time.
Exactly,
and that's what we want. Okay, I'm willing to sit in limbo, in the liminal space for 10 minutes or maybe 6 months, but not for a long time. And we collectively are going into liminal space. I wrote this thing down. I love this statement. There's a beautiful man named Peter Kingsley, and he wrote this history of Western civilization. And he talked about the deep roots, the deep spiritual roots of Western civilization, the indigenous roots of in that were behind Greece, particularly, and in Europe. And it's called The Book of Life. It's beautiful. His name is Peter Kingsley. But he wrote this thing, and it just really hit me. He's a beautiful writer, besides a very courageous man, to say what's so. There is a moment and place for everything. And now is the moment for folding, like nomads, the blanket of this culture, tidying up loose ends, tucking in the corners. Soon it will be time for moving on. Something's ending here. Can we be with that? Because these are the times we, I believe, chose to come into.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Peter Kingsley, The Book of Life, absolutely beautiful what you've just read. Thank you.
I have another thing that I'm just thinking about. I'm thinking about what happens at the end too. My mom died a few years ago after I finished the book. I talk about her in my book, and my mom went into severe dementia at the end of her life, and she was, everybody said she's gone, and it was that way for a long time, and yet I came to be with her, and I traveled across this country so many times to sit at her bedside. And there was a time when I was there, and she was lying kind of in a stupor, as usual. And all of a sudden she opened her eyes. And I wrote down what my mom said to me then, because I was just like dumbfounded. Let's see if I have it here. She looked at me and she said, I feel really, really uncomfortable about leaving the world in such a state. And I thought, oh my God, this is my dementia mother, like all of a sudden a level of knowing started coming out of her. And I said, what do you mean? She said, things are falling apart very quickly now. I feel like I should be helping, but I can't anymore. And I said, what do you think is going to happen? And how do you know? And her comment, the climate change is going to bring chaos and destruction, and people aren't ready. I can just feel it coming. I know. And I made a comment. One of the reasons I want to free myself up from work I'm doing and finish this book is that I feel I have a part to play in stabilizing the response to what's happening. I feel the same way about what's on the doorstep. My mother, she's heaved this sigh of relief and said, I'm so relieved. I think I've given you all the resources I can to deal with this. You're as resourceful and as ready as you are going to be. I think I can go. And she started to cry. And then she commented, it's going to happen around water. Water is the most precious thing. It makes all life possible when we're very close to not having enough or clean water, especially doing things like pouring it through fracking systems. I mean, there's like this brilliance coming out of her. And she said, people are going to turn on one another. Water is sacred. The worst human violations are going to be around water. And then, I just said what an important conversation this was. And she said, I'd like to be able to help you. I said, yeah, you always help me. I think there are things you may be able to do better from the other side after you die. Endings. She said, yes, it's true. I'm so confused and I can't do anything now to help. This is so relieving. I can partner with you when you need it from the other side. And I said, okay, we'll do this together. And her last comment before she went back completely out again until the end, which was not long after that, she said that beauty was the answer to the chaos that's coming. And the reason I took the time to say this was, this is feminine wisdom. This was buried in my mom. She never spoke like this. But at the end, at the very end, there's something that we know. In the endings, what do we know that we only know in the endings? What's the gift here? And it's, if we're not afraid to go there. I mean, it's not just someone dying, but it's the endings. There is something that we know. And to me, this is the stuff of leadership. This is the stuff of real vision. This is the stuff of preparation for what's to come. Because, you
Absolutely.
know, the blanket is being folded, as Peter Kingsley said. And there are things,
yeah. Thanks so much for sharing this. I think it's, very, very precious. Really, I'm feeling it in all kinds of ways. And it brings up another theme, if you don't mind, which is about leaders today and generations. You know, we are of a certain age. You are a generation further than me, and I'm a generation further than my children, etc., etc. And yet I feel that there is that need of elderhood to be present, to give wisdom in one way or another to the younger leaders that are coming now, that are in an environment that is everything is possible straight away because of, artificial intelligence, because of city life, urban life, everything is very, very fast.
Yeah.
And to be present, I think is a very big gift to give as well to younger leaders. So that, something to hold in mind as well as we keep going with this work.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. I'm 72, and I have had elders. I've had people that have seen who I am, that have held me, and that have lived deeply considered lives, who serve the whole. And I wouldn't be who I was without that. And I want to be that for you and many young people right now. You know, we're leaving these young people with a hell of a situation on this planet, and they need our weight, and our humility, and our listening to them, and our support for what rises up in them to do and be, because they are at a different stage, and they may be angry, and they may be, motivated, and they may be activists in ways that I am not right now. I am an activist, but it's less visible at the moment. But I love that you're just bringing this up. It's probably a good way to kind of close this time together. That being there for one another and for our young people right now, it's the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
I have young people that come in the summer and camp on my property, and we sit around the campfire and we just talk, and they love being around this old person, because I know how to
Wonderful.
listen. I
Yeah.
know how to listen to them, and
And that's an important leadership quality, isn't it? Yeah.
any intergenerational work that we can do, and I know there's been beautiful things in CIYO done that way, that honor the continuum of the ancestors right down to the, who we are. We need our ancestors. We not only need our elders, we need our dead elders. That because they are present. It is one continuum. And actually that continuum goes right through our young people, and the young people yet to be born. This is in John Trudell, a Native man in the States. He said, "We are the middle of forever."
Beautiful.
We are the middle of forever. And from that place, we can begin to have the wisdom and the largesse to work with the seemingly intractable challenges of the day.
Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time for this conversation, and yeah, helping others to understand what the CIYO is all about, and speak soon, I would say. Thank you so much.